Okay, so I'm going to show you the last problem on the notes before I do a problem on the homework assignment. Okay, this is again converting from standard form to vertex form. So again, to set this up, and I'm going to show you the other way now. I'm going to put my blank space on the opposite side of the equation, and you can do it however you feel most comfortable. So we've got our x squared minus 2x. We got to make room for a blank space, so I'm moving my constant positive 7 to the back. Okay, but now instead of putting my blank space behind the 7, I put it on the other side of the equal sign. Sorry, so I put it on the other side of the equation. So I'm going to show you how it changes things just a little bit. Okay, so again, to fill in the blank, we got to make sure we have a 1 in front of our x squared, which we do. Our a value here is a 1. So we're ready to fill in the blank. Filling in a blank, you got to take half your negative 2. Half of negative 2 gives us negative 1, and then you square that. So negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. Okay, now, since my blank is on the other side of the equal sign, right, then we have to keep everything balanced. So if I put a positive 1 on the right side, I got to also put a positive 1 on the left side. Got to keep it balanced. Got to do the same thing to both sides. Okay, so now to get rid of that positive 1, to get our y by itself, we have to subtract 1. So it cancels. So we have to come over here and subtract 1. So that's why in the previous problems, I just put my blank space here at the end of the 7, and I put a plus 1 and a minus 1. You got to keep them opposite if your blank spaces are on the same side of the equation. So now I've got y by itself on the left. Okay, the shortcut to factoring our trinomial here. I know I've got an x. I know I need a squared on the outside. So what number goes here? Half the middle term. So what was half of negative 2? Half of negative 2 is negative 1. And then when we combine these like terms here at the end, this constant 7 minus 1 gives us positive 6. So there is vertex form. X minus 1 squared plus 6. So to identify the vertex, all right, again, the x value is always opposite. You do the opposite of what your x says. So you have a positive 1. The y value always is what it is. So that's a positive 6. 1, 6 is your vertex. The axis of symmetry always needs to say x equals, and it's always the x value of the vertex. So it's going to be a positive 1 here. The x value of my vertex is 1. And again, last but not least, looking at your a value, there's an invisible positive 1 out front. Since it's positive, you have a positive in front of the parenthesis. That tells us that our parabola opens upwards. If we had a negative number out front, it will tell us that it opens downwards. Okay, so I'm going to do problem number 4 on the front page of our assignment. Okay, I'm only going to do problem number 4 because it's slightly different than anything we've seen so far on the notes. All right, so we're still going to move our constant out of the way. So I've got a negative x squared plus 6x. Give yourself a blank. Move your minus 5 out of the way. And I'm going to go ahead and put my blank out there with my minus 5 on the same side of the equation. Now here I'm not ready to fill in the blank yet. I do not have a 1 in front of my x squared. I have a negative 1 in front of my x squared. So what I need to do is I need to get rid of that negative sign. Okay, in order to do that, we're going to treat it like it's a GCF, and we're going to take it out. So if I take that negative out, what's left over? I'm left over with an x squared. If I take a negative out of here, I'm left over with a negative 6x. And I still have a minus 5 at the end. Now I'm ready to fill in the blank. I got a negative out front. Okay, well, what's half of negative 6? It's negative 3. But then I have to square that. So negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. And if I put a plus 9, okay, this is kind of confusing because what I have to do is I need to distribute my negative to my 9. Okay, negative times 9 is actually a negative 9, which means this dude needs to be a positive 9. So now I'm able to factor this trinomial with my shortcut. So I know I need an x, and then what number goes here? Half of my middle term, half of negative 6, which was negative 3. And then combine the like terms at the end. Negative 5 plus 9 is positive 4. So vertex form y equals, now I have a negative out front that I had to take out as our GCF, x minus 3 squared plus 4. So my vertex, again, is always opposite of my x, so it's going to be positive 3, and the y value is what it is, positive 4. The axis of symmetry always needs to say x equals, and it's always the x value of the vertex, so here it's a positive 3. And now when we look out front, our a value is a negative. There's an invisible 1 there, negative 1. Since the a value is a negative 1, that tells us that our parabola opens downward. So that's the only one on the first page that has a negative a value. So that's why I chose to do that one. Problems 1, 2, and 3. Problems 1, 2, and 3 don't. They are just like the 4 problems from the notes that we did. So you should be able to handle those. In the next video, I will show you what happens when we have an actual a value, a coefficient in front of our x squared, an actual a value, and how we're going to take out that GCF and how we're going to work those. So that'll be day 2. Okay, so all of those problems on the second page of our assignment have a values that are actually greater than 1. So we'll look at those in the next video and in our next lesson.